following program is a production of the Barroom Network. It is intended for all audiences.
Doug Buffone.
This defense sucks. This is moronic.
John Buffone.
Is Bill Lazor a good play caller, or is Matt Nagy such a bad play caller that it makes average look like Bill Walsh?
Doug was behind the microphone first. He never held back.
Very difficult to score when your offense is on the bench. When your defense is out there giving up 70, 80, 70, 64-yard drives.
Now, it's his nephew, John, and there's no holding this Buffone back either.
What the Bears are right now is what has been wrong with them for over 30 years. Just aim to be competitive and do your best to be average. And maybe we should just accept that, because the front office sure as hell did.
I don't mind you getting beat. I got my ass whipped many times. But I tell you, I took somebody down with me.
The games have been close because the defense, your offense, which you came in to revolutionize, has gotten worse as the years go by.
It's Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Welcome to the premiere of the 6th season of Buffone 55, a fast-paced approach at breaking down those Chicago Bears. We had to play that open one more time for nostalgic purposes. Just one more time of me ripping into Matt Nagy. Just one more last gasp, and then we're looking to the future, and that's what today is about. I'm John Buffone, and with me again this season is my co-host and trusty producer, Alyssa Barbieri. Alyssa, Buffone 55 is kind of like your favorite Netflix show. You binge the whole season, and then you have to wait months upon months until the new season comes out. Well, guess what? The new season drops right now. We're back. Alyssa, how are you doing?
Oh, I am so ready. I have been waiting for this. Although listening to that old open, I kind of forgot. I felt like we were back in the Matt Nagy era, and it really freaked me out for a second. But it's all good. The future is bright now. At least until the first couple of weeks.
I was saying until like week 2, and then we're going to get back into it. Right now, we're positive. We're looking forward. We're leaving the past behind. We're moving forward, and we're doing so with the premiere of Buffone 55. And we got a great guest lined up for our first show of the season. But just in case, on the offset chance that this is the first time you've ever listened or watched Buffone 55, by the way, what the hell's the matter with you? But Alyssa, let our listeners and viewers know how this show works.
So Buffone 55 has 3 segments, and we always begin with our guest. And this week we have a special one. Joining us will be Clay Harbor, a 9-year NFL vet who has been covering the ins and outs of Bears training camp. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that he was a contestant on The Bachelorette, a show both Aldo and I hold dearly to our hearts, and we're still trying to convince John over here to come over to the dark side. That's then followed by our B55 segment. That's when I ask John 5 questions, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. The 55 is John's way of paying tribute to the great Doug Buffone, his uncle, his mentor, and a man who played 15 seasons with the Bears and wore number 55. We then finish things up with a free-for-all we call Buffone's Basement, where Aldo Gandia joins John and me, and the 3 of us chug down some Bears talk. So John, take it away.
Thank you, Alyssa. You're going to have to do a little bit more work before I jump on the Bachelorette. I can't even say it. Bachelorette show train. But like you said, our guest has been killing it with Bears coverage all camp and all preseason long, and he's an incredible Twitter follow as well. We now welcome Clay Harbor onto the show. Clay, welcome to Buffone 55. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm out here in West Loop, Chicago. It's a beautiful day in the city, and I love talking Bears. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, and it's crunch time. The season kicks off on Thursday. The Bears kick off their season on Sunday against the 49ers. Bears fans it's at a fever pitch right now. We're just right about to hit week 1. We're ready to get going. So let's get going. I want to hear your point of view. You spent a lot of time at Bears camp this offseason, this preseason. And there's just been a lot of storylines. There's been a lot of different things thrown out in the national media, but I want to know what your takeaways were, because you were there. You were able to analyze and look over some of the players. What are some of the players that stood out or maybe surprised you that maybe weren't on your radar going into it, but really did make an impression?
Yeah, there's a number of those guys. And to start, I mean, I got to start with the position I played when I was in the NFL, and that was tight end. And the guy who really stood out and I like, and I'm expecting a big year from, a big season from, because this guy is, in fact, big. And the first thing I noticed from Cole Kmet is I'm 6'3" and some change. I'm a pretty big dude. I get on the field after the practice. This guy is standing next to me. Turn around, like, who the heck is this guy? Cole Kmet? This guy's 6'6", 6'7", 265, 270-pound dude. I haven't seen a tight end this big that can move like him since I played with Rob Gronkowski. Big year coming for Cole Kmet. He can move. He can run routes. He can catch. He's a blocker. He will block a defensive end, and that's something me as a tight end that I look for. I don't like the pretty boy tight ends that are basically glorified wide receivers. I want you to be able to put your face and hands in a block and handle a defensive end. Because otherwise, you're basically just a wide receiver. They're going to bring a sub package. They're going to bring a nickel defense in to guard you, and you're not really giving yourself an advantage by keeping a linebacker on the field running against a linebacker. So to start off, I have to say I'm really impressed with Cole Kmet. And yeah, I mean, I could keep going here if you guys want me to name some more of these.
No, I was going to say, what is your overall takeaway of the camp? Because a lot of people going into camp thought that, this is going to be, they're throwing it together all, it's going to be, it's a scotch tape and paper clips. And it's just like this new regime, a new play caller, a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach, a new GM. This is destined to just, be kind of ramshackle moving forward in the first couple of weeks. How did you see the overall process of camp?
I thought it was a good process. The first thing I noticed when I got to camp is I said, Matt Eberflus is running a fast and aggressive camp. He was moving around from position to position. The first tweet I sent out at Bears camp, so hey, these guys are going to be conditioned. These guys are going to be in some great shape because they're moving from drill to drill, nonstop, fast-paced football. That's what you like to see. So maybe they'll use some tempo coming into these games because they're in such good condition. They went play after play after play after play. There's no break. And it's faster than most camps I've been a part of and most camps I've seen. So to me, I think that's something that they have. It's a trick they have up their sleeve. They're in a little bit better shape than some of these other teams. They can use tempo, get QB1, moving down the field, and to get some hurry up offense in there.
Yeah, and Clay, obviously the national narrative surrounding the Bears isn't a pretty one. They've been mentioned among some of the worst NFL teams in the season. And I'm curious, what do you make of the negative attention that Chicago has been receiving? And what are your realistic expectations for what this team can accomplish in 2022?
I'm not saying the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not even saying the Bears are going to make the playoffs. What I am saying is they are going to be a competitive team. I saw that at camp. I saw the same stuff I saw at camp in the preseason. Justin Fields is better than people give him credit for. Last year at this time, Andy Dalton was the starting quarterback. Nick Foles was the second straight quarterback. Justin Fields was playing with and against number threes. He's playing with threes. He's not getting to play with the team that he was playing with today. He's playing against threes, which I think is even more important. In training camp, obviously you're getting used to your offense, throwing to this receiver, throwing to this tight end, this blocking, all these guys are getting used to them. But Justin Fields was playing with and against threes. So he's not playing against NFL talent the whole preseason, the whole training camp. He's playing against backups. Half the guys didn't even make the team. So when he made that jump last year to play, this was his first time actually seeing NFL talent. So to me, that's why that was so impressive. And now this year, he's with the ones the whole year. He's the quarterback one the whole year. He's the leader. He's playing with and against ones, with and against NFL talent every day. And that's how you improve. So that's why I'm so optimistic for Fields this year. And then I see the offense. They're saying this is going to be one of the worst, Mike Martz, the worst talent he's seen since the 0-16 Lions. Okay, Cole Kmet at 22 years old had 60 catches, 600 yards. This guy's 23. I'm thinking he's going to be flirting with 800-plus yards, 5-6 touchdowns this year. David Montgomery, to me, vastly underrated. I know he's an NFL top 100 player, but I think he's even better than that. They're going to get the ball to this guy early and often. I think he can make things happen. Then you go to Mooney. I think Mooney's a player that's going to have 1,300 yards this year. He's running great routes. I see him. He can catch the football. And I know there's not a lot of big names after that. Pringle's been hurt, but I like what I saw from him early in camp. Equinemius St. Brown, like what I saw from him. Dante Pettis was one of the guys that stood out. As soon as I got there, I go, who is this guy running these routes? These routes are great. And I look him up, Dante Pettis, former second-round pick. There are some guys there. Velus Jones, very quick, extremely quick. And I think he can make a difference. He's got to work on his hands a little bit. But this guy can run some routes. I like Ryan Griffin as a backup tight end. I think their O-line, they're not great. They're going to have some growing pains. But I don't think they're the worst offensive line in the league. Maybe they're in the bottom third. But they're not just going to be getting blown past all game. And I think Eberflus and Getsy know that what they have with their O-line. They're not going to leave Braxton Jones on an island without a chip against some of these big-time pass rushers, especially Nick Bosa coming in. They got a plan for that. They got a plan if Bosa starts having a game. They're going to chip him with the running back. They're going to chip him with the tight end. They're going to get some double teams in there. Some max protect, play action stuff. You know how to play. And these guys have been in the league, and they know how to call an offense. So that's why I was a little bit more optimistic than the whole bleak outlook that everybody in the national media was. So I think there's some positive things. I think the Bears are going to be competitive. I'm not going to say they're going to go out and upset San Francisco the first week, but I think it's going to be a close game. But I definitely know the Bears aren't going to go 3-14 like Sports Illustrated put them. They will be better than that. I think they're a better team than they were last season.
Clay, you talked about Justin Fields a little bit, and I want to go back to that because with some of the supporting cast that you talked about with Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney, what are some realistic expectations for Justin Fields this year as he goes into a very pivotal year two? I'm not going to where you hear some national pundits saying if the Bears are going to draft a quarterback in the first round next year, because I think that's absolute garbage. But I think that but what are some realistic expectations for Justin Fields in a new system, once again, with a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator, a new system, a new line, some new weapons? What can Bears fans realistically think Justin Fields can accomplish in 2022?
I think he's going to improve. I think he's going to improve on his 73 rating. I think he's going to improve on his 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I think you're going to see improvement. I think he's going to be a guy that can complete 65% of his passes. I think he's a guy that can throw 15, 20 touchdowns. Maybe he still throws 10 picks, but he's getting better. And he's also going to give you 800-900 yards on the ground. That's going to help this rushing attack. With a quarterback like Justin Fields, I want to see some zone reads. Obviously, he's going to scramble and use his athletic ability here and there. I'd much rather see him when he's scrambling and keep his eyes downfield, like Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles last year. Jalen Hurts only had 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year, and he led the Eagles to a playoff berth. He had one receiver to throw the ball to. He had Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins as his 2 and 3. These guys aren't big-name guys. He obviously had a good tight end. The Eagles have a good tight end, Dallas Goedert, and he had a solid O-line. I think it could be something similar to that. 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 800 yards rushing, have a good season, build on this season, and then now look where the Eagles are. They had a lot of cap space. They made a lot of moves. The Bears got the most cap space in the NFL, almost doubling the next team next year. So I want to see some improvement. I want to see them be in some of these close games. They got a tough schedule, but I think they really can surprise some people this year, and I think Fields will improve.
And a lot has been made of, Fields' underwhelming supporting cast, the receiving core and the offensive line. And I'm curious, who do you think needs to step up to help Fields this season, maybe even outside of Darnell Mooney? And do you think that Fields can succeed and show that progress with this current supporting cast?
Cole Kmet's got to be a bona fide star for the Bears. He's one of the most important guys for the Bears this season. Also, Mooney. Mooney's going to have to show why I think he's one of the best running backs in this league. Those two guys got to show up. And then you got to have another receiver show up. I love Pettis. I think Pettis can play. I think Velus Jones is going to think he's going to be more of a specialist for him, but Pringle's going to have to play. Equinemius St. Brown. I had no idea how big this guy was. Not that he's big physically, he's so tall. Get this guy involved with some jump balls. He's 6'5", 6'6", 210 pounds. These guys can play. I think Pringle showed he could play on a great offense in Kansas City. So I'm excited to see what he does when he's back and healthy. And I think some of these guys are going to have to step up. The thing I like, these guys can all catch the football. They can catch the football. They're not guys that have balls bouncing off their chest and bad hands, off their helmet, anything like that. They can track a football and catch a football. So they'll get some space, and that's up to Fields and Getsy to scheme some routes to get them open.
Let's switch sides of the ball, because one of the biggest storylines during camp was the Roquan Smith saga, the hold-in, the trade demand, the press conference by Poles, the statement on social media. Obviously, it seems like they've tabled some talks for now, but how do you foresee Roquan's future in Chicago? Is this a guy that you think, or at least hope, will be long-term in Chicago, or are some of his salary demands pricing himself out of the market?
I think it's tough because, where do you see a middle linebacker? Obviously, the Bears are known for middle linebackers, linebackers in general. Go back to Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher, a team that has a great history of that. So what do you want your team to do? Do you want to spend top dollar on a linebacker, or do you want to maybe get some secondary guys, a solid linebacker, some solid pass rushers? So it's just, what does Poles want? Poles isn't the guy that drafted Roquan. Poles isn't the team, doesn't owe Roquan anything. So I'm not sure that they pay Roquan. I like Roquan as a player, but I'm not sure he's worth what he's asking for. So I know that he's a Chicago fan favorite and everybody loves him. I love Roquan too. I think he's a great player. But I'm not sure he's worth sacrificing your whole defense for just that one piece. And I think linebacker is important, but I think you have to have a group of guys and not just one guy that you're going to pay top dollar to be successful. So I don't know. I don't know what Poles is thinking, and he made him a good offer. Apparently, Roquan wants that. He wants that market-setting deal. So we'll see what happens.
And if the Bears do move on from Roquan, obviously Ryan Poles has showed that he's someone who's going to continue to retool this roster. And we saw that with the notable waiver wire pickups that he made after final cutdowns. And that includes obviously Alex Leatherwood, Armand Watts, and Amir Smith-Marset, among others. And Clay, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the new additions?
Yeah, I like some of those. I think Leatherwood's an interesting guy. I think he's, he's a guy that obviously is a first round draft pick for a reason. I think maybe they move him inside and get some work in there. But I like the receiver they got. I think these are some guys that could pay some dividends. And some people say that's not a good sign when you use the waiver wire to pick up 6, 7, 8 new guys, which being the year that might hurt you a little bit, because some of these guys are going to have to play. They're going to have to get caught up to speed. I was a waiver wire pick up at one point in my career. I'm playing with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2013. In the last cut on the Eagles, I get picked up by the Jacksonville Jaguars during that first week of practice before the game. Back then, there was only 1 week from the preseason to the first game. I get signed on Monday. We're playing on Sunday. Our starting tight end goes down. Next thing you know, I have to play tight end. The first play of the 2013 season for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I caught a 15-yard pass after not playing one practice there. So you have to be ready to go. You have to be able to learn an offense, and it's hard. It's not easy. You're not comfortable. You don't know exactly the playbook. You got to study, and then you just got to go out there and play and just hope you don't mess up, because you're not as comfortable as you should be. So there's a little bit of a negative deal there once you're signing all these guys from other people's waiver wires, because they're not familiar with your team. But I like what he's doing. He's being aggressive. If he sees talent out there, he's not going to hesitate. He's going to jump on it. So I think he's making the team better. He's creating more depth and getting a lot of pieces there. So I'm excited to see how the season goes and how some of these signings do.
I'd like to get your overall impression of the attitude that not just Matt Eberflus has pushed during training camp in the preseason, but maybe the culture that Ryan Poles is trying to institute as well. What do you think the overall culture is that these two men are trying to build and are hopefully building the foundation for moving forward?
Yeah, I think they're showing some really good things, and they're showing it's team first, and they're not going to invest in just one guy. It's everybody's going to go out there and play, and I think I like their style. They're going to play hard, fast football with Eberflus, be competitive. They're going to push them in practice, and then in the game is their time to have fun, go out there and play. And he's going to have his players' backs. I've been watching his press conferences. He's got his players' backs. He's always talking positive. He's not a big negativity guy, which I like. It's a lot easier to play for the guys that are going to be, positive reinforcement as opposed to negative reinforcement. So I love that. And I love Poles. Poles isn't going to back down to a guy like Roquan. He's going to say, hey, this is what we offer him. He stood in front of the media on that press conference when Roquan was saying all the stuff about the contract. Say, there's some spots in this deal that he would make him the highest paid middle linebacker in the league. He didn't like it. This is what we're going to try to do moving forward. And this is, what we're going to do now. So I really like what they're doing, and they're setting a standard for the Bears. And I hope that this leads into some success because obviously the last few years, haven't been good.
We've talked a lot about the offense so far tonight, and this is a fresh start. No more Matt Nagy, bringing on Luke Getsy. Justin Fields is the undisputed quarterback one, which is nice. But there are concerns, and I'm just curious, how do you think that this Bears offense is going to stack up when compared to the rest of the league and the expectations for them in the first year under Getsy?
I think they'll be better than people think. People think that this team is one of the lower, the 32, 31, 30th ranked team in the league, and I think they'll be better than that. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 10 offense, but I think they can be middle of the road. I think Fields is going to impress a lot of people. Like I said, this is his first whole offseason, training camp, preseason, but actually playing with NFL talent and against NFL talent. So you're going to see some big improvement there. I love Kmet. I think the offensive line is young, but I think they're going to keep getting better as the weeks go on. They're going to keep getting better. I think this team is a team that can upset some teams down the road and keep growing. So I'm really excited to see that. This national media, I don't know. For some reason, they just hate the Bears. And even Justin Fields and some of Mooney's getting a lot of hate and a lot of slander. So I'm excited for these guys. They knock off the 49ers Sunday. They're gonna have to start turning some heads.
Or at least convince the rest of the league that they're not the worst team in the NFL. But yeah. I think that'll be proved pretty quickly on. Before we go to a couple of user questions or commenters questions, I want to ask you, everyone keeps talking about the offense and how the offense is going to have this new look and how, Justin Fields and all of his supporting casts are going to play. I think sometimes it's swept under the rug. This is a new defensive scheme coming to Chicago as well. There's a whole new scheme, and Roquan's going to have a different set of responsibilities thrust upon him. What did you see from this offense? Maybe not schematically wise, but I guess attitude wise, because we know that is Matt Eberflus's bread and butter. What have you seen from the offense or the defense so far?
Yeah, so what I really like about the defense is I like that defensive line. I like Robert Quinn. I like Mahabin. I like Travis Gibson and Dominique Robinson. Those four guys showed me a lot in training camp. Dominique Robinson is a rookie, and he's a fifth-round pick. But this guy's explosive. He's got great moves. I was like, saw some moves from him. I'm like, wow, that guy is good. He can play. And I think he's going to be a guy that shocks people. I think Travis Gibson, a guy last year that had 7 sacks and 9 starts. He was actually a top 10 graded pass rusher on PFF somehow. And I think he's a guy that starts to get more and more opportunities, and with those opportunities, he's gonna show some people what he can do. I think Gibson is gonna have a great year, and then obviously Robert Quinn. This guy people forget he had 18.5 sacks last year. I mean, come on, that's incredible. 18.5 sacks, and he's obviously gonna have his hands full this week, Trent Williams. But I think that's gonna be one of the best matchups we'll get to see all season. And I love people giving Poles a hard time. Right? Oh, he went out and drafted these defensive backs, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brister. He had to. The Bears last year gave up a league worst quarterback rating against. It was like 103 or 104 against their entire defense. You can't win football games like that. Oh, he should have put stuff around Justin Fields. Justin Fields wouldn't have got on the field if these guys are completing passes like it's 7-on-7 against the defense. You got to have a better secondary, a better defense to get your offense on the field and be in better field position. It's all symbiotic. It all works together. So I think Poles knows that. Poles has a plan, and I like these 2 defensive picks. And they're going to have their hands full this Sunday because the 49ers are coming into town. You're going to see Brister have to play a lot against Kittle if Kittle plays. I know there's been some some talk about his groin, but Kittle's groin's fine. Kittle's going to play, okay? And then we got Deebo Samuel, who torched us last year, and Kyler Gordon's going to get matched up on him a lot in the slot and outside the slot. They move Deebo around a lot, even give him some handoffs, but I think those guys are going to get tested really early. And, hey, trial by fire. I love that. I want to see what these guys can do. And to me, what I've seen this preseason, what I've seen in training camp, I think these guys are going to step up to the occasion.
All right, looks like we have some user questions here. Takings on Wesco. Clay, did you see Wesco play?
I haven't seen him play, but just looking at his stats and his size and his reputation around the league, is this guy's a blocking tight end. We're talking about the tight end Wesco, correct? He's a blocking tight end, and I think that's something that they need because they obviously I was upset they let go of James O'Shaughnessy. I know he was sick. He got waived with a sickness or illness or something, but when I saw training camp, I know he was out for a while, but he was making plays right and left. This guy can block, he can catch. So I was intrigued at why they let him go. I was foreseeing some three tight end sets with Griffin. I love Ryan Griffin. Obviously, I love Komet, and I really loved O'Shaughnessy. I guess they were going to have this veteran battle between O'Shaughnessy and Griffin and see who won. But I still love Ryan Griffin. I think he can do a lot of things with the two tight end sets. You saw him catch that touchdown in the preseason game. So I think Komet and Griffin will spend a lot of time on the field together because both those guys can split out and play slot. Both those guys can play attach. Both those guys can play as a fullback and a move guy. So I really like the possibilities they have with these tight ends.
And we got another question from the chat, and it says, Clay, what do you think of this wide zone run scheme, and how long will it take to gel and play well?
I like the zone. I've always been a fan of the zone, and I think zone it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. You got to take your steps. Everybody's got to be in unison. You got to take the same steps. And you play against different defenses. Obviously, you got to get some movement. Whether that's diagonal, whether that's pushing them off the ball, you got to get movement in the zone. Then let Montgomery, let Herbert pick their zones, pick their holes. And as a tight end, I liked it because you're protected. Everybody's zoning the same direction. So say the defensive end wants to slant inside. It's not a one-on-one scheme. It's a zone scheme. So then you can just pass them off to the next defender, right? And then the next guy, then you keep climbing. So it's a simple scheme. It's not easy, but it's simple. And I'm a big fan of the zone scheme. I played a lot of that when I was playing ball.
All right, we got one more user question from Tooch. How do you all think Trey Lance will do this season? Is he really an improvement over Jimmy G? And do you think that the Bears can give him some trouble coming up on Sunday?
It's a sticky situation for Trey Lance, and I've been thinking about this one. And if he doesn't start off hot, there's going to be guys in that locker room that are Team Jimmy. Jimmy took him to a Super Bowl. Jimmy took him to the NFC Championship game. And if they start losing some games because Trey Lance can't compete, he can't play well for the first couple games, then there's going to be a sticky situation in that locker room. There's a lot of veterans in there. These guys want to win now. They saw how close they got to a Super Bowl. They want to win now. So that's a sticky situation. I think Trey Lance can play, but Trey Lance is coming from my conference, the Missouri Valley Football Conference, a North Dakota State product. I went to Missouri State. He was playing the last few games. He played 2 games last year, but before that, he's playing against Missouri State, Southern Illinois, Northern Iowa, Youngstown State. Those are the teams he's playing. There's some talent there, but it's nothing like NFL Sunday. The speed is so much faster in the NFL. So that's going to be hard for him. I think if the Bears can show him some different blitzes, show him some different zone coverages, obviously mix in a couple man blitzes here and there, I think it could be a tough day for Trey Lance coming into Soldier Field.
Yeah, very rarely do they keep the guy you're replacing on the roster to be breathing down your neck for the entire season, especially coming off of a deep playoff run. Very unique situation in San Francisco. Clay, before we get you out of here, I want to know if you have any predictions for the game coming up. The Bears, I believe, are a touchdown underdog. It keeps shifting between 6.5, 7.5. So I think it's on 7 right now. But do you think the Bears have a shot in this opening game? Because I've been saying if they're going to catch the 49ers anytime in the season, I prefer it to be week 1 whenever Trey Lance hopefully is still getting acclimated to that game speed. What do you think happens on Sunday?
I think it's a fair pick right there. 7 points. That's still a close game. And you got to remember, this team was a play away from the Super Bowl last year. This roster is a great roster. This isn't a bad roster. You got Fred Warner. You got Nick Bosa coming on the defense. You got Deebo Samuel. You got some players on that team. So I think it's a fair pick, but I think the Bears, they're going to have to play a good game. They're going to have to establish David Montgomery early. Roquan's going to have a good game. Brister and Kyler Gordon are going to have to, I'm not saying completely shut them down. They're going to have to play great defense against Kittle and Deebo and Braxton Jones. How is Braxton Jones going to react? Braxton Jones is an FCS player too. Like I said, it's not easy. My first game, I played in the NFL. My heart was pumping. I'm like, dude, you played football before. Couldn't help it. I went from playing against Missouri State to playing with the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. It's a different animal. So Braxton Jones against Nick Bosa. We got Larry Borum on the other side. This guy's only had 8 snaps in his career. These tackles, and the 49ers got great rush ends. So I want to see if these tackles can block, and I think they can. I know we got Riley Reif back there just in case, which I thought would get the nod because he's a veteran. He's playing this league. I played with Riley. I like him. I think he's a great player. But if all those things can happen, if these tackles can block, I'm not saying stonewall them every play, but if they hold their own, Roquan has a big game, Brisker, Kyler Gordon has a nice game, and we establish David Montgomery, give Fields some time. I think the Bears can upset here, and I'm not going to say that, it's going to happen. Obviously, I got to see more, but I think it's going to be a competitive game.
So you're saying there's a chance, and that's all we need. That's all we need. Clay, before we cut you loose, please let our listeners and viewers know how they can interact with you, see your stuff, get all your analysis, and all your social media stuff.
Just follow me on Twitter. I'm going to have a couple announcements coming later on this week. I'm going to be doing some work with some podcasts in Philadelphia. But I'm still going to be talking Bears. I love my hometown team. So just follow me on Twitter, ClayHarbs82.
Excellent. Clay Harbor, thank you so much for being on Buffone 55, our premiere episode of Season 6. Great insight. We really felt like we pulled back the curtain a little bit on this team, so we appreciate that. And we'll talk to you down the road.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. And we'll be back with more Buffone 55 right after this.
I don't know why people don't talk about this more is Oracle Park in San Francisco. Like, that's just such a neat field. Like, just the whole aspect of it. It's kind of breathtaking. Growing up in St. Louis, it's basically them and the Cardinals for 5 years from like 2010 to 2015 or whatever it was. It's just back and forth. So, you see that park growing up in the postseason all the time, and I walk in, it's like, holy cow, man! Like, this is sweet, and like the atmosphere, the fans are unbelievable there. So I was fortunate enough to go to an NL Park, out west, which not many guys get to do in their first season.
Catch this episode of South Burbs Hitman on Demand wherever you get podcasts, or head over to YouTube and watch the video stream, and make sure you subscribe so that way you don't miss out on any of the Barroom Network's live programming.
And welcome back to Buffone 55. Now it's time for our B55 segment. That's when I ask John 5 questions, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. The 55 is John's tribute to the great Doug Buffone, his uncle, who played 15 seasons with the Bears and wore number 55. So, John, it's been a while. There's a whole new regime in place since we've last done this. So, are you ready? Because I don't know if I am.
I don't know if my timing's on like it usually is. It's still preseason for everybody, so we're still working on it. But we'll give it the old college try. Let's see what we can do.
Let's see. Maybe we can go 3-0 in the preseason with the Bears. Let's see. We got this.
All right.
Okay, John. So, and we've talked about this all throughout the offseason and even the preseason. The national media has been taking shots at the Bears. It's quite annoying. One of the more common storylines is that Justin Fields has the worst situation out of all the second-year quarterbacks that were taken in the first round last year. So as we approach the regular season, do you agree with this notion? Let's dust off that timer. You have 55 seconds.
Well, I suppose if you do 5 seconds of research on each team, that's a possible conclusion. Oh, Trey Lance has Shanahan and Debo and George Kittle. Better situation there. Oh, Mac Jones has Belichick and like 3 offensive coordinators. Better situation there. Zach Wilson. Oh, they draft a wide receiver in the first round. They have Elijah Mitchell or more. Better situation there. Trevor Lawrence. Oh, they spent $80 million on Christian Kirk and they brought in Doug Peterson. He won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Definitely a better situation there. So that surface area analysis could help you draw the conclusion, but they're missing the biggest part is that the biggest thing that affected Justin Fields was a coaching change. And now he has an offensive coordinator that basically runs the Shanahan system, and he actually will fit a scheme to the quarterback, something we have not seen in a long time. And it's kind of crazy that people just dismiss Darnell Mooney and dismiss David Montgomery as if they are not elite playmakers.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think necessarily that Fields is in the best position out of those 5 first-round quarterbacks, but I don't think he's in the worst either. I mean, we talk about Luke Getsy coming in. People are underrating that move. It's like, do you remember that he played with Matt Nagy? Matt Nagy was his play caller. The way that he was able to make Fields look that bad was impressive. So, I mean, just in bringing Getsy in, an actual adult in the room, someone that actually understands offense and understands that you need to cater it to your quarterback's strengths. Wow, novel concept. I think that's going to help him just tremendously. And yes, there are some questions about his supporting cast, and other teams went out, even outside of like the first round quarterbacks from last year. Look at what the Dolphins did for Tua Tagovailoa, like what they brought in, the the receiver and the offensive line, like they helped him. Maybe that's what the Bears do next year. But for right now, I think that Fields is in a pretty decent position, mostly because, like you said, John, Matt Nagy's gone.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And quite frankly, yeah, I don't think he's in the best position. But the fact that all you hear is that, the Bears are just dooming Justin Fields. And you know what? He's going to play so poorly that they might consider drafting a quarterback in the first round next year, because clearly they're going to be drafting in the top 3 or 4 next year. So all of this is just junk. Now, the best part is we get to settle this as they play the games. And people who watch this show know I'm not a homer. I'm not going to be like, oh, the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. But I also understand when they're not as bad as people say they are. So yeah, we're gonna make sure we're gonna put people in place a little bit here.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some of Justin Fields' weapons, which is one of the biggest criticisms as to why he's going to fail this year, apparently. So as we mentioned before, there are a lot of wild cards out there as we head into week 1 against the 49ers. And I'm interested to know your overall analysis of this current receiving core. Good luck keeping this under 55 seconds. Go.
Look, so the way I look at this is Ryan Poles bought a bunch of $1 scratch-offs. You head into the season with Equanimeous St. Brown, Byron Pringle, Dante Pettis, Tajay Sharp. You draft Velus Jones. You traded for N'Keal Harry. So instead of just one $20 scratch-off that you hope pays out big because you invested everything you got into it, you cast a bunch of small nets and you hope that one of them hits. I'm getting pretty convoluted here in the metaphors, but I think you get the point. If St. Brown catches 60 balls for 800 yards and 5 to 6 touchdowns, isn't that a huge return on investment? If Velus Jones takes 3 or 4 gadget plays to the house and catches 30 balls, isn't that a big return on investment? No one is going to talk about this island of misfit receivers if one of them actually hits. And I think that's the game plan Ryan Poles is adhering to. Spread the chips around the board to increase your chances of hitting. And I somehow fit 3 metaphors into one response, but I hope everybody followed that.
I love it. You're mid-season form.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, I think it's fair for, I guess the argument is that, yes, Darnell Mooney is the only proven guy on the roster, in the receiving core at least. And yes, okay, that's true. But also there are a lot of young guys that we really don't know much about, which, maybe obviously towards later in the season, we could be talking about Equanimeous St. Brown or Byron Pringle or Velus Jones having a mini breakout year. So we really don't know yet. That's up to these receivers. And like you said, Ryan Poles, he's not taking any huge swings, at least yet. And he even said that he's not someone who's just going to go out and sign the big name, right? He's doing his homework, him and his staff, and they're going out and they're finding people that are going to help this offense. You have Equanimeous St. Brown, who's that big receiver that can be utilized in the red zone. And you have Darnell Mooney, who hopefully has another 1,000-yard receiving season. And Dante Pettis, like Clay was talking about, I'm really curious about how he's going to factor in because, he is a veteran. He's going to be utilized obviously on special teams, but he's someone who, again, is flashing that chemistry with Justin Fields, and he's going to get some opportunities. And we haven't really seen Byron Pringle yet, but, he's a speedster and he can be a playmaker. And he was someone who was buried on Kansas City's depth chart. So, I'm really intrigued by this group. I don't feel overconfident, but I don't think did Mike Martz call this receiving group like the worst? I know he called the offense like as bad as the 0-16 Lions. I don't think they're that bad. They're unproven, but I'm willing to give them a chance.
Look, I'm not saying any of these guys are better than Allen Robinson, but it's not going to take much to match Allen Robinson's output from last year for that number 2 spot. So I think if they can overcome that, then you can't say that the receiving core is going to be worse than last year, because look at the production. Allen Robinson's, I think, is still a great receiver, but he didn't do anything last year. So these guys have an opportunity to, go past that, so we can see more production out of the wide receiving core.
And that's the thing too. People are like, the Bears got so much worse at wide receiver. And yes, losing Allen Robinson is a huge blow. But when you look at the receiver group from last year, it didn't get that much worse. It wasn't a complete overhaul. I mean, it was a complete overhaul, but you lost Allen Robinson, and behind him, who really had a significant impact? No one really. So, I mean, it's a little unfair to start calling this group the worst or the worst in the NFL. But again, they're unproven, and I'm willing to give them a chance. And, we'll see. Maybe, great quarterbacks can, really help his players out. So we'll see what Justin can do with this group. And he even said he can win with this group of receivers. So go for it, Justin.
I like that last user comment that people, they kind of confuse unproven with bad. And that's not the case. I think that the unproven just means unproven. Yeah, people are conflating unproven with bad by Eric Bono. I probably screwed your name up. I apologize. But that's a great point. Unproven does not necessarily mean awful. It could, but that's why it's unproven. It could also mean pretty good. So we'll see.
Hey, we're not used to that as Bears fans, but hey, maybe tides are changing. You never know. Okay, so we're sticking with the offense because obviously that's a big topic heading into the season. But we're going to switch to the offensive line, another popular discussion topic. Tevin Jenkins has been a lightning rod of conversation throughout the summer and the preseason. Although he has appeared to have found a comfort zone at right guard, trade rumors were swirling, back during final cutdowns. Obviously, that didn't wind up happening. John, I'm curious, do you think that Tevin Jenkins was actually in danger of being traded? The clock starts when you do.
No, I thought it was silly the first time I heard it, and I still think it's kind of silly. So this might be a recurring theme here. But once again, what was the return going to be? Unless he was an absolute cancer in the locker room, which there's no inkling of that at all, you have to see what you got in Tevin Jenkins. He's on a rookie deal, so you're paying him nothing. He's still super young, and it appears that he found a comfort zone at on the right side of the ball, right guard. So he is the starter after all. So furthermore, what were you going to get for him at this point? If you're an interested team, you see this guy has dealt with injuries throughout his young career. You aren't entirely sure where he's supposed to play on the line. So what do you give up for that? A fifth rounder? A fourth if you get fleeced? So I think you keep a 24-year-old and see if he can figure it out. And the worst case scenario is you don't re-sign him in 2 years. I don't think dumping him for a late round pick is a wise choice. And I don't envision him getting traded anytime in the near future. But, with our luck, Alyssa, he'll get traded the second we go off the air. But
yeah, I remember when that report surfaced for me and Rappaport, and it just kind of seemed like he wanted to die on that hill. And that was right when Tevin Jenkins had solidified himself at right guard. So it was really kind of confusing. And like you said, when you have a young offensive talent like that, why are you going to get rid of him? That's why Ryan Poles went out and got Alex Leatherwood, right? It's kind of like the same thing. He's like a rookie again. So they have this young offensive talent that they're developing. So, I never believed that anyways. And I know this week, with Lucas Patrick and not being able to snap, Tevin, it doesn't sound like he's going to be starting at right guard on Sunday, but, as soon as Patrick is back at center, everything's going to be fine. So no use freaking out over that. But I never saw that happening because, Tevin I've never seen a turnaround like that. Mm-hmm. That entire offseason was really stressful.
Right.
That poor guy, what he had to go through, it was just up and down. And then it was just one of those Hallmark movies. When he finally found his spot, it was nice. So, I never really believed that he was on the trade block. Ryan Poles even addressed it where he was yeah, people are all of a sudden calling me and being hey, are you trading Tevin? He was no. But again, you're going to answer those calls, but he wasn't out there making them.
And I think you bring up two good points. One is the fact that I think what Tevin has gone through is going to make him a much better professional because he's dealing with all this stuff in his second year. And to Cliff Victoria's point, so is Alex Leatherwood, who got claimed off waivers. These are guys that, have gone through a lot. The Leatherwood's first team just gives up on him a year after he's taken in the first round. And Tevin Jenkins is getting moved all over the line. He's dealing with back problems, trade rumors. This is kind of that. This is where you become a man type kind of situation where he's just like, you've had to deal with all this, and now I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to crack some helmets now. So I think that could potentially, they could come out of this in the positive sense. And two, Ryan Poles does not seem like the kind of GM that's going to have a 24-year-old guard, tackle, whatever, on his second year of his rookie deal, paying him nothing and just be like, you know what, just give me a fifth rounder. Doesn't seem like that kind of guy. Seems like a guy who's investing in youth, investing in small risk, high reward kind of guys. And that's what Tevin Jenkins at this point is. Kind of a low risk, high reward because you're not paying him a lot. And he could turn out to be a regular starter throughout his tenure. So I never even batted an eye. Like when I heard these trainers, I was like, well, things are getting interesting or things are getting weird, but I never really thought that he was going to get moved.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with Ryan Poles' introductory press conference, he didn't really mention a lot of people, but I think that he singled out Tevin Jenkins when he was talking about offensive linemen. So he, even before even doing a deep dive on him, he saw the talent and he recognized that. So again, as someone who has, Ryan Poles said he wants to develop this talent, you're not going to give up on him like that. He's already under contract. You're going to do what you can, and like you said, if he doesn't work out, then you move on from him and you let him walk.
It's low risk and
Yep.
with all the potential in the world.
Okay, John. So it's been a while since we've done this show, and a lot has happened on the Roquan Smith front. We all know about the drama of the trade demand, the holes in at camp, the contract negotiations, Ryan Poles' press conference, and then Roquan ultimately coming back to play out the final year of his contract. So with all of that coming into the equation, get out your crystal ball. What do you think ultimately happens with Roquan Smith and the Bears? 55 seconds are on the clock.
So first and foremost, I'm always an advocate of a player getting his money, especially at a high collision position like linebacker. However, I can see this becoming more and more strange. I mean, it's already strange with the consultant apparently tampering with teams about trading for Roquan not really having an agent, and then the press conference called by Ryan Poles. It was just all very strange. But honestly, I can see Roquan Smith playing this year and then getting franchise tagged in 2023 because it could still be cheaper than what the Bears originally offered and what Roquan Smith wants. Look, this is tough because I'm sure the staff wants to see how he performs in this new system. And there's that whole question about paying a linebacker between 20 and 25 million or, resetting the market kind of money. But you also want to surround your quarterback with weapons and down the road. So this is kind of a temporary reprieve because this is still going to come to a head probably right after the season.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I think that they're ultimately going to franchise tag him. I don't see how they're coming to an agreement because it seems like they're so far apart. And I don't think Roquan helped himself by not having an agent to kind of serve as that conduit. I don't think he helped himself at all, but I do think they'll franchise him. Plus, this kind of made me think about some of the other players that are coming up for contract extension. So maybe Darnell Mooney in a couple of years, right? So that's someone we're going to really see where is Ryan Poles valuing, who's he going to pay? Does he think that Roquan's worth that money? It doesn't sound like he's willing to budge there, but maybe he invested obviously in free agency. They have a whole bunch of money to work with next year. And then when Mooney's extension's coming up, I don't think David Montgomery is going to be back, but we'll see. Cole Kmet, if he ends up breaking out, Jalen Johnson, there's a whole bunch of young players that are going to be due for contract extensions, and we'll see where is Ryan Poles willing to prioritize spending that money and helping the future of this team.
And like you said, you're eventually going to want to pay some weapons for Justin Fields, who you're hoping is the most important person to develop. So if it's all about getting the quarterback right, you may see them spending a lot more money on the offensive side of the ball because we've seen what happens when your top 5 players are all on the defensive side of the ball. Whenever it's Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn and some Eddie Jackson, defensive players tend to get hurt more because they're a high percentage of collisions, and so we see Akeem Hicks miss games, we see Khalil Mack miss games, and that's where all your money is. So we'll see what Ryan Poles' vision is on this. But my guess is he put out a number and he's sticking to it. And I believe even during his press conference, he said there's aspects of that contract that were record setting or of something of that nature. So pretty sure he's going to stick to that number.
Okay, John. So we're going to end on this, and we talked about this a lot, with Clay, and even before we jumped on the show, the national media weighing in on the Bears this offseason, and many believe that they're going to be the worst team, like not only one of the worst, like the worst team in the NFL this season. I don't even want a timer for this one, John. Just go for it.
So look, I don't love that I have to talk about and think about what teams might be worse than the Chicago Bears, because I don't want to just think about, who's going to be worse. I want to think about how good the Bears are going to be. But I've been pushed into a corner. When I see Twitter polls and national media and fans weighing in on who is going to have the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft, and I see people commenting Chicago and it's not even close, then yeah, you know what? I'm going to get a little defensive. Do you think Atlanta with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder are going to win more games than the Chicago Bears? Do you think Geno Smith and the Seahawks in the NFC West are going to win more games than the Chicago Bears? How about Lovie Smith and Davis Mills down in Houston? They're going to win more games than the Chicago Bears? For me, the best part is, though, the Bears are going to leave no doubt because they play a lot of these bad teams. They play Houston. They play Atlanta. They play the Jets. They play the Giants. They have Detroit twice, and we still don't know how good Washington's actually going to be. Look, I said this when it was released. This schedule is juicy, and if the Bears were just a little bit better, they can make some real hay with this list of opponents. I think their absolute floor is 5 wins because over the past 10 seasons, the average wins by a team that has the number 1 overall pick is 1.9 wins. And the highest out of those past 10 seasons was 3 wins. So I don't think the Bears are a 2 to 3 win team. So to answer your question, no, the Bears aren't going to be the worst team in the NFL in 2022. We'll be back with Buffone's Basement right after this.
Need a little help with your sports betting? Well, the Barroom Network is here to help. On Saturdays, it's Weekend Sports Betting Tips with John Santucci and Anthony from PoundItSports.com. And then on Sunday, it's the Mike North Advantage with the great Mike North. Best way to stay on top of things is subscribe to the Barroom Network's YouTube channel.
Welcome back to Buffone 55, and it's time for our third segment, which is called Buffone Basement. That's when we welcome in that old battle axe, Aldo Gondia, to talk about some of the trending topics around the Chicago Bears. Aldo, how you doing, my brother?
I am doing very well, very well. Great show so far. I'm here to ruin it.
That's why we bring you in. That's exactly why.
You're very welcome.
So I want to start with the game on Sunday because I think it's a very interesting concept. We have Trey Lance, who has been given the reins to San Francisco, although Jimmy G is still on the roster. And then you have Justin Fields, same draft class, with a team that apparently has no expectations this year. Who do you think has more pressure on them to perform in week 1? And Aldo, since we just brought you in, I'd like to hear your take on that.
Who's more pressure, Trey Lance or Justin Fields? Well, definitely Trey Lance. I mean, this is a team, the San Francisco 49ers, that many people are picking to go to the Super Bowl or deep into the playoffs. And so that's a lot of pressure on this quarterback who has played probably about as much quarterback in an NFL game as you have, John. So that's quite a bit. And I think that the reports coming out of San Francisco are encouraging for Bears fans in that he being Trey Lance, has had some difficulty with those sideline passes and his accuracy. And there's just a lot for for him to congest in a short amount of time. And Justin Fields, on the other hand, has felt so confident. Week to week to week, we've seen the progress. We hear him talk about the progress, and he has instilled, I think, a lot of confidence in many Chicago Bears fans. I think the pressure is all on Trey Lance in this game, and he doesn't have tape of the Chicago Bears running this defense. And it was encouraging for me to hear that Coach Eberflus today in his press conference said, yeah, we're going to attack him the same way you do any other young quarterback. We're going to put pressure on him, and we're going to disguise looks. And I hope that they bring the blitz in. I know that the scheme, usually they want to rely on four-man blitzes, but a guy like a Trey Lance, let's throw a few blitzes on him early and see if we can scare the snot out of him and really take advantage of his inexperience.
Alyssa, is this the right time for the Bears to be catching the Niners? Because a lot of people have high expectations for the Niners, but it is week 1, and everyone's getting acclimated to that game speed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I haven't picked the game yet. So, I'm going to save my game pick. But that's why I think that this game is going to be very competitive and very close. Like Aldo was saying, you need to pressure Trey Lance. He's an unknown commodity. He's his heart's going to be racing. This is going to be the first time where he's going out there on the field. He's starting. This is his team. And, hey, by the way, Jimmy Garoppolo's still on the bench there. So,
right.
I don't think his job's in danger. I think they're committed to him and they're going to ride this out. But, hey, Jimmy G's still there. So, I think they're catching him at a perfect time, honestly. And kind of going back to the pressure question, the way you hear, everyone talking about Justin Fields, you would think he's under more pressure, but it's clearly Trey Lance. Like Aldo was mentioning, this is a potentially Super Bowl caliber winning or competing team. They're definitely going to be a contender, and Trey Lance cannot afford to be the reason why that they don't get there. So, the pressure's all on him. If the Bears are able to pull an upset, it's because this is happening so early on in the season. So I don't know. We'll see. Pressure the heck out of him, boys. Let's go.
It's a bizarre situation for me because it's just that you spend 3 draft picks to trade up for Trey Lance. Jimmy G takes you to the NFC Championship game. You outwardly and publicly say this is now Trey Lance's team and we're going to try to trade Jimmy. Jimmy Garoppolo apparently isn't even practicing with the team. He's on his own separate field practicing, I guess, from what the reports are saying. And then they're like, well, you know what? Let's just bring you back because apparently, and I think it's probably the shoulder injury that made all this happen because they weren't able to flip Jimmy earlier on because he was still hurt. He was still recovering. And then, it got later on in the season and people and other teams may be like, we're not giving you anything for him because we know you don't want him. You kind of backed yourself into a corner by saying, yeah, this is Trey's team and we're going to try to trade Jimmy. Same with the Baker Mayfield thing. Okay, we'll just kind of wait for you to cut him unless we're going to just give him away for nothing or you're going to pick up some of the contracts. So it's just for me, it's just kind of a bizarre kind of situation there and probably makes Trey Lance a little more, even more uncomfortable than he already is being thrust in as this, here's the keys to the Ferrari, but Jimmy Garoppolo's in the back seat just in case you can't handle it. And I just think that's a lot of pressure for a young quarterback who really hasn't played any significant football for a few years now. But let's go back to the Bears. I want to talk about their offense, specifically the wide receiving core, because someone needs to step up to be that number 2 this year. Who is that going to be? Alyssa, I want to start with you. If you had to pick who you think will be outside of Cole Kmet, because I think a lot of people think Cole Kmet might be second on the team with in catches. But as far as the receiving core, who is going to be the one that steps up? Is it Equanimeous St. Brown? Is it Dante Pettis? Does Tajay Sharp resurrect his career? What happens there? Or does whenever N'Keal Harry comes back, does he hit the ground running? Who do you think actually steps up?
There's so many different options to choose. And these are all guys that are looking to prove themselves. So, I feel like it could really be anyone. And, maybe if, Byron Pringle hadn't missed all that time, he would be the guy I'm looking at. But, I think Equanimeous St. Brown, because he kind of came out of nowhere. When they signed him, everyone's like, okay, he's going to be wide receiver 4. He's going to be involved, but he's not going to really be doing much. But the way that he stepped up in training camp and the preseason and instantly developed that trust with Justin Fields, that's something that cannot be underrated. Fields is going to go to the guys he trusts. Mooney's going to be 1. Kmet's going to be 2. Equanimeous St. Brown could be that number 3 guy. He already knows this offense. He has experience playing in Luke Getsy's scheme. So I think that's a big thing for Fields. And I think that obviously him being a red zone target, right? You needed that last year. Cole Kmet, someone else that could be that red zone target. But I think that Equanimeous St. Brown is going to surprise a lot of people this season.
Yeah, I'm with Alyssa and a lot of other people in the chat room who are talking about Equanimeous St. Brown having a good season. EQ knows this offense so well. He runs such precise routes, and he has been praised by Justin Fields in a couple of press conferences. So I think that's huge when a young quarterback is trying to get acclimated to a new offense. And we know that Justin Fields knows this offense very well. He's been studying hard. He is relying on guys to be where they are going to be, because a lot of this is timing passes and throwing to a spot, and EQ is there for that. Plus, Dante Pettis has been super, super effective at running pass patterns. So this could actually be one of those things where you'll see Darnell Mooney get 80-plus receptions. And then after that, when you look at that reception list, it's going to be a bunch of guys with 40 to 60 catches. And that would be outstanding for an offense that a lot of people are criticizing, that doesn't have wide receivers. But instead, maybe we don't need a number 2 wide receiver or even a number 1 wide receiver, like so much in the national media is blaming the Chicago Bears for not having, although I personally think Mooney is a wide receiver 1 talent. So this ball could be spread around, and it may not even be a concern that, of the hierarchy of who's getting balls.
Yeah, and but before I go on, I forgot that they put Tajay Sharp on the IR before the deadline, so he's actually out for the entire year. So I doubt he resurrects his career this year. But moving forward, you just keep hearing all the reports about Dante Pettis' route running, and I think that's going to be really integral moving forward, especially with Justin Fields knowing that he's going to be in the right space at the right time. And then you do have Equanimeous St. Brown. So although I like what you said, where it's just like it could be Darnell Mooney with 80 catches, Cole Kmet with 65 catches, and then you got 2 guys with 35 or 45 catches. Which, if you tell that to Bears fans before the season, I think most of them would take that. I think a lot of them would be very happy with that, and that would be surpassing expectations. And so you throw it to the open guy, and like Clay said when we had him on, that these are guys that when you throw it to them, they're going to catch it. It's not like the ball's bouncing off their helmets, or they have a real problem with they have butterfingers or anything of that nature. Though, so I think that there is an opportunity there to have a real solid receiving core. Now, do they have the top 5 superstar? Do they have a Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams? No. But that doesn't mean that they can't have a very effective passing game. So I think that is something that is interesting to look at. And it's just nice to be talking about some of the potential some of these people have, or some of these players have, because I think last year we kind of knew what was going to happen. I think in the year before that, we kind of understood what was going to happen. We held out that, we'd keep banging our head against the wall and eventually something different would happen. I think that we held out for that hope. But I think this year, there's real hope and there's real intrigue. And I think that's been the real theme for Bears fans, is there's just curiosity. You want to see what these guys can do, because they are unknown. There's just a lot of unknown on this team. New scheme offensively, new scheme defensively, new players in different spots along the offensive line and the wide receiving core, and hell, across the defense as well. So I think there's just a lot of unknowns, and you're just intrigued to watch, because you want to see which one of these investments is going to hit for Ryan Poles and which one is going to be a regular starter moving forward. So I just think it's just an interesting team to watch this year. If you're a Bears fan, let's talk about one of those guys that has been moved around, and we talked about him in the B55 segment, but I want to get your thoughts on this, Aldo. Tevin Jenkins, who was, brought in, they traded up for him. He's going to be last year he's going to be your future left tackle. And then, maybe he's going to be your future right tackle. And you're like, hell, geez, now he's hurt. Now we're going to trade him. And now he's in right guard, which he seems to be more comfortable at. Do you think that he's found a home there? Do you think that that's where he's going to be, and he could potentially be the anchor at right guard there?
Yeah, I really do. I think, back when we were doing Draft on Tap and Tevin Jenkins was coming out, Danny Shinman scouted him, and Neil Stopchinski, and they both said that they saw him better at that guard position. And I agree with Greg Gabriel on his show. He said that all of this hoopla that happened with Tevin Jenkins was basically he was misbehaving in some way, and that the Bears put out some stories or leaked some stories to fire him up. And he may not have liked it, but it sure does seem from listening to him in press conferences that he sounds like he's got a chip on his shoulder. He sounds more professional in his approach. And I think his play in those 2 preseason games has issued a promise that this guy could be our future king at that right guard position. He frankly reminds me a lot of Kyle Long, and he's got that athleticism that Kyle Long had. I've been a big proponent of the importance of the interior of the offensive line in today's NFL, because it's a quick passing offense now, and the teams are putting their best pass rushers closer and closer to the guards in the center, because that's the quickest route to the quarterback. It's not exclusively that way, but you need those quarterbacks. And every quarterback will tell you what's the most important thing they need in pass protection is a pocket, something to step up into the pocket. And so if you've got Tevin Jenkins playing at fulfilling his potential, and you've got Cody Whitehair, who I think could have his best season ever, and hopefully we'll get Lucas Patrick back in there. I know a lot of people in the chat room are terrified of the fact that Sam Mustipher is going to be at center, but I think Sam Mustipher has actually improved based on what we saw from last year in the preseason. So we'll see. I have high hopes that the entire interior of the offensive line could be a big improvement, and Tevin Jenkins is a big part of that.
What do you think, Alyssa?
Yeah, looking at the offensive line too, because people are talking about obviously how bad the Bears receiving core is and how bad the offensive line is. They're like, oh, the Bears have the worst offensive line in the league. And I did something like even earlier this offseason before all of the different changes of the starting combinations, and you kind of looking at the players on last year's roster at offensive line and this year. I mean, I don't think it necessarily got better, but it didn't get worse either. But there are some, obviously, you still have Tevin Jenkins, who you're moving him around, you're finding a natural spot for him. And you even have Alex Leatherwood. I'm really curious to see if he develops, how that's going to shake out, because you're hoping you have Braxton Jones as your left tackle of the future. I mean, Lucas Patrick was there for a couple of years at center. Tevin's right there at right guard, and you have Borum hopefully works out at right tackle. So it'd be interesting to kind of see if Alex Leatherwood really does develop, where he's going to figure in to this offensive line. I mean, that's a good problem to have. But I mean, I'm just kind of like we've been talking about, like all the negative media attention. I'm just ready for football, because I'm so tired of hearing how bad they are at like every position. It's just really annoying. I'm like, let's just play already. My goodness. But I do not think the offensive line is it's not as bad as people are talking. Again, it comes back to unproven doesn't necessarily mean bad. Like Braxton Jones is a big question mark, but he really held his own in training camp and in preseason, going against Robert Quinn and Al-Qadim Muhammad and Travis Gibson. That's going to really help him as well. So I think he might be the biggest question mark, but at the same time, he's unproven. Give him a chance to prove himself. So I do think that this group, just like the entire team, I think is going to surprise people this season.
And I think Cliff Victoria makes a pretty interesting point in the chat room here, that Leatherwood could challenge Whitehair for left guard next season.
Oh.
He might not have to challenge anyone for left guard next season if Ryan Poles decides that he wants to save some money and let Cody Whitehair walk, because he's the highest paid lineman on that line right now. So if he wants to go completely young, he would be paying that line nothing, which would allow even more money to go towards outside weapons or signing Roquan Smith or signing a big name in free agency. If Leatherwood does develop like they hope he would, I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but I just like talking down the line. If Leatherwood does turn out to be a solid guard and they let Whitehair go, then Poles he is the bank. He can spend whatever he wants next year addressing any position. Now, do I think he's just going to go out there and frivolously spend and throw cash up in the air? No, because we've seen that he didn't do it this year. But he will have a lot more flexibility moving forward. Then again, if Whitehair has a great year, you keep him around. Let's move to a topic that I just love talking about, because Bears fans are so polarized on this, and they're just split down the middle. This deal going to Arlington Heights seems to be a foregone conclusion. So, okay, the Bears are going to probably move from Soldier Field to Arlington Heights. I think they're playing in Aldo's backyard, but for the interim year. But the biggest thing that came out this week is it could be an enclosed stadium, which means that would be a dome, and the Bears would no longer be playing in the elements, and Bear football goes by the wayside. And I'm speaking a bit sarcastically here, but Aldo, as the resident Bears fan on this show, I should say senior Bears fan on this show, I would like to get your input on this. I know you like them. I like the idea of going to Arlington Heights simply because logistically it works out much better for you. However, what do you think about the possibly enclosed stadium? Because it could be a retractable roof, but anytime they put a retractable roof on there, if it's cold, they're gonna put it over so the fans don't get cold or get snowed on or get rained on or any of that matter. So what do you think?
Listen, I lived through that era. I first started watching the Bears when they were playing at Wrigley Field and loved those mud games. Loved the seeing the Bears in their elements, their all white uniforms, totally covered in mud. But that was a great era. But the reality is that football has changed dramatically since then. This is a game of throwing the football. This is a game about speed. And in order to play well under those circumstances, you need a roof. You need good conditions so your speedy players can run faster. Today, Eberflus talked about how he was behind. He didn't want to take all the credit, but he had a big influence on this new turf that's being installed in Soldier Field because he wants his fast players to play fast. And this roster is comprised of a lot of fast players. Well, guess what? That isn't going to change. I don't care if Eberflus is gone in 2 or 3 years. This is the game now. It's arena football at the National Football League level. And so for the Chicago Bears, get yourself an enclosed stadium. Forget the whole thing about Bear weather. That was last century. Let's get with this century. I want to get season tickets, and I want to be nice and warm and cozy with my little bottle of brandy watching Chicago Bears games under a roof.
Alyssa, I know you like
it all does.
I know you like hot weather. I know you like warm weather, Alyssa. Are you all about the dome?
I mean, I'm kind of torn because I love the Bear weather. I love it being cold. I like it. I just always think of that 2018 game when the Rams came to town. Like, that's just the impact that had. It was just incredible, and it made for an amazing game and an amazing moment. So, I mean, I never thought of the Bears playing in a dome. Like, it's very, very odd, but I'm not necessarily against it either. I mean, I guess the easy way out would be you make it retractable. But, like Aldo mentioned, they might, just close it up, when it's snowing. I mean, hey, maybe not. Maybe Matt Eberflus will be like, okay, hey, let's keep it open today, right? Like if you have a warm weather team coming, like maybe you can even use it like kind of like game planning against an opponent. Like if the Packers are coming to town, I mean, there's no real reason to keep it open. But maybe if you have like the Rams who play in sunny, warm Los Angeles coming to town, you open that baby up. So, I mean, I guess I'm taking the easy way out, make it retractable.
So listen, I have connections to the old, Chicago Bears, and like Aldo said, playing in Wrigley Field, and it's 25 below zero, and your drink freezes in your cup before you even get back to your seat, and so I can respect that. I love the history of the game. I love the aesthetics of the old game. I love seeing the elements in there. It's almost like it's theatric. It's almost like it's a theater to watch that in motion. The NFL Films does a great job of doing that. But I also know that Bear weather football hasn't translated in many wins and championships in the last 40 years. The home field advantage that the Bears have has been what? One Super Bowl since 1985. So I don't necessarily see this being, they're giving up their big advantage. What advantage? You know what? All it does is it makes bad teams a little bit like it keeps the game a little bit closer when a good team comes to town. So maybe the other team gets frozen and you can squeak out a win. I'd rather be, like you said, Aldo, fast every week. Do you really think in your heart of hearts that Aaron Rodgers loves playing in Lambeau in January? Do you think he loves having frozen hands trying to throw the ball? He's from California, by the way. Do you think he loves being for the frozen tundra and hitting the ground and it feels like he's hitting bricks? I don't think so. And if he was being honest, maybe he has said this, but does anyone love playing in that weather? Maybe the defensive side of the ball, they have some screws loose. Maybe they like going after it, but the way that the league is now, and it's so offensive oriented, and all of the advantages go to the offense, why would you not want your offense to have an advantage every week? So I think that I'm not against it at all. I like the move simply for the logistical reasons. But I don't live in Chicago. But from what I'm told, it is an absolute nightmare to get into Soldier Field. And it's a logistical nightmare to go tailgating there, to park there, to get there. It's one of the few, I don't know, it might be the only major metropolitan city where the team still plays in the city. The Dallas Cowboys don't play in Dallas. Neither LA team plays in LA. Both New York teams play in New Jersey because they need their facilities to be more accessible. Some of the smaller cities like Pittsburgh, they can be downtown because there's more space there. There's not. And so in Chicago, it's one of the few huge cities where the team actually still plays downtown. So I respect that. I understand the history of Soldier Field. I'll always cherish the memory of Soldier Field and the teams that have played there. I just, you can't stop progress. Were people mad when they left Wrigley? Maybe. So are people going to be mad when they leave Soldier Field? Probably. But you're thinking about this facility they're going to build out there. They're going to put let's just face it, they're going to put a roof on it. Now it's just whether or not it's going to be retractable or not, because they're not going to pass up an opportunity for this facility to be a year-round revenue gainer, because they're going to have concerts there. They're going to have basketball games there, maybe Final Fours there, maybe host a Super Bowl there. They're not going to balk at a chance to have year-round revenue just because they want it to snow in there. So I think that it's coming. Now it's just, is it going to be retractable or is it actually going to be fully enclosed? Time will tell. I'm not going to be mad either way. I'm actually surprised at myself. I'm surprised because I thought I'd be like, no, you play in 5 feet of snow. No, you gotta go out there and your hands are frozen and you can't feel your face. That's what you got to do. I'm surprised. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe I'm getting more towards your mindset, Aldo. It's just like, I'd rather be comfy cozy sitting and watching the game. And you know what? The TV experience has gotten so good that the NFL teams are like, are people really going to keep paying $400 a ticket so they can sit here and freeze their butts off? Or would you rather have them have a better fan experience, and maybe we can up the price to $500 a ticket, because then they won't be frozen and have to leave at halftime? We'll see. Well, and this is still down the road. It's going to be quite some time before that facility is built or approved or whatever. But I just figured it's going to stay in the talking point for a while. Before we get to a couple user questions here, one last thing. Obviously, we heard about Ted Phillips retiring at the end of this year, which elated most Bears fans. But then you have people coming out this week. I believe it was Dan Pompei that said that he doesn't believe that Ted Phillips really did much meddling with football operations. So, Aldo, I'm going to start with you again, just because you've been following the team longer than Alyssa and I have, just for sheer. I'm not even going to say, because you've lived longer. I try to say that in the nicest way possible. So what is your lasting impression of Ted Phillips as this appears to be his last year with the team?
To Dan Pompei's point, I totally agree that Ted Phillips did not meddle much at all. But unfortunately, he had the biggest decision of any of building a football team, which is hiring the guy that's going to make all those football decisions. And he consistently struck out, with the exception of Jerry Angelo. Every other decision he made after that was terrible. And so that's the big problem with Ted Phillips' legacy. Now, I did a little research. this team was valued at $500 million when Ted Phillips took control of the team from a CEO president's perspective. It's now, according to Forbes, worth $5.8 billion. So no wonder the Hallis family, McCaskey family, didn't fire him. They kept seeing all this money rolling in, but it is time for him to go. He's 65 years old, and it's time to bring in some new blood. I don't know if it's his decision or if George McCaskey said, "Listen, you got a great helicopter, great parachute." Leaving town here, we'll hire you as a consultant on the stadium. You're gonna get paid well. You've made millions with us. Thank you very much. And so I think that's his legacy, is that he helped the team owners become super rich, but he just couldn't make the right decisions to build a dynastic type franchise, which is what this team with its great history should be.
I'm sure the owners appreciate that, him helping them make him rich. I mean, hopefully they want wins too. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing that sticks out is, he did well on the business side of things, but like when it came to like the football, like hiring the guy that's running the football operation, like it didn't do well, right? A lot of losing. But I think, this Arlington Heights Stadium, this is going to be his lasting legacy with the Bears. This is the last thing he's going out on, right? So like he's someone who's leading it. And like you said, although he might continue to be a consultant on it. So, just when I think of Ted Phillips, I just think of a lot of losing seasons. I know, John, the same. Like, we haven't seen a Super Bowl. We've seen lots of losing. So that's the thing that I'll remember with him. And like every time he met with the media, just like the Bears fans' reaction, it felt like an annual event, like just to come here and let's trash Ted Phillips. So no, but I think on the business side, I think that he did well. Like you said, Aldo, he made the owners super rich, and it's going to make him even more rich with this Arlington Heights Stadium. So, bon voyage, Ted.
Yeah. For the fans' point of view, you don't really care how much the owners make. So you look at the wins and losses. From a business side, Aldo, you're absolutely right. He was a great businessman, and he did a lot of good things for the Bears organization. I believe he oversaw the renovation of Soldier Field whenever they needed to do that. And he somehow helps that process get in there. He's helping with his Arlington Heights. He secures the sponsorships and all this other stuff that the Bears are bringing money in on. So, yes, and I believe he and Ryan Pace both oversaw the renovation of Hallis Hall and what was going to go onto those facilities. And so, yes, he was able to bring the business side of the Chicago Bears into the modern age. The problem is, like you said, although he was also somewhat responsible for bringing the team into the modern age, and they just never could get that GM role filled the way that they should have. Sans Jerry Angelo a few years, sure, but I think that it's his legacy with fans will be much different than what his legacy is within the business world. The business world will see Ted Phillips' lasting legacy as a successful one, whereas the fans are going to zero in on the fact that they have not seen a Super Bowl in nearly 40 years, or a Super Bowl win in nearly 40 years. So it all depends on who you ask, I guess, on what Ted Phillips' legacy is. And Alyssa, I think you're right. This Arlington Heights thing is the one to go out on. This is the swan song. If I'm going to go out, I want to be the guy that built a brand new, beautiful facility for the Bears out of the city, but brought their stadium into state of the art that's going to compete with those of LA and all those other beautiful, and Jerry's World and all this other. There's all these stadiums throughout the league. So I guess it all depends on who you ask to see how you feel about Ted Phillips. Aldo, we got any questions?
Yeah, we got some questions and some comments. John, you've got fans who follow you religiously on social media. Space Ghost is one of them. He says, "We all miss your Uncle Doug." And then he also added, "You have Doug's eyes." Has anybody ever told you that?
Yes, the Buffones all have these beautiful sunken eyes that anytime you can tell a Buffone from a mile away, because we all have the same eyes that are basically 2 inches in our skull. So it's just very, and we all have bags under our eyes like 24/7. You name it, we got these bags under our eyes, and our eyes are basically on the back of our heads. So it's very nice to hear that, because every time that, I go to my hometown and, somebody I don't know, they're like, "You're a Buffone, aren't you?" I'm like, what gave it away right here? But thank you so much for those kind of words. I actually just met up with my cousins who were Uncle Doug's daughters this weekend in Pittsburgh. It was nice to, reunite with them. We went to a Pirates game we don't even need to talk about that team. But it was just nice to catch up with family and kind of there was a lot of Uncle Doug stories there. So it's always this time of year where I really reflect on him, and our family really reflects on him, because it's the start of football season. And, this is whenever, he would either be getting ready to play or he'd be ready to go on the air after the Bears game. So this is the time where we really start thinking about him. It's when I really start thinking about him. And quite frankly, I can't think of a better time to start this show on the year during the year than right now, because that's whenever he's in my mind the most.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I gotta tell you, Alyssa and I always thought those bags under your eyes were courtesy of Ted Phillips in the Chicago Bears.
You know what? Subconsciously, that might be true. I never really thought about it. We are a family of Bears fans, so maybe we're all just reacting to this with these eyes.
I got some serum for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
All right, you got another fan here, and Roy Thomas. I believe he is your good friend, Roy Thomas, and he writes here, hey, John, hope you're well, buddy. Looking forward to another year of your shows. Rooting you on here from Greensburg, Pennsylvania. You guys got rid of Trubisky. Now we have him, LOL. All I say about the Bears at San Francisco game this week is bank on the under. But I think that brings up a good point about Trubisky and Pittsburgh. You need to fill us in what you're hearing about.
Listen. And, I kind of grew up with Roy. Roy was actually the umpire for all my Little League games growing up. Wow. Roy's a good guy. But when he went to Pittsburgh, and I'm in a group chat with a lot of my friends from the Pittsburgh area who are all diehard Steeler fans. Like they are, like I associate with other diehard sports fans, but they are diehard Pittsburgh Steeler fans. They know the ins and outs of that team. And when he went there, I thought of all the times they ripped on Trubisky when he was playing in Chicago, but I wasn't going to say anything, because if he goes there and plays well, I am never going to hear the end of it. I will never hear the end of it. You couldn't make this guy work in Chicago. He took our team to the playoffs, or he did that. So they're now, luckily for me, Kenny Pickett seems to be playing pretty well. So right now, all of their attention is on get the rookie in there. He looks good. He's playing well in the preseason. Although Mitch is going to be the week 1 starter, much to the delight of our friend Mike North. It looks like Kenny Pickett is right on his heels as far as being ready to play. And that's what they thought. I mean, I'm not a big draft guy, but it seems like that out of being pro ready, Kenny Pickett, I mean, he started in college, 25 years, so he should be ready. So I think that, Steeler fans, they like Mitch, but they're anxious to see Kenny Pickett in there as well. So it's interesting for me, because if Trubisky somehow plays well in Pittsburgh, I don't know if I can ever go home again.
That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
We missed out on an opportunity for a Bears-Steelers game this year, like early on in the season. Man, that would have been great.
That would have been the time.
Gosh. Yeah, even a preseason game would have been fun. I want to pose a question to Alyssa that's inspired by Cliff's comment here. Cliff says, Doug Buffone was a hero of mine. I quote his ways to win games often. Alyssa, do you know what that quote is? Putting you in the hot seat.
Oh, man.
John, you better not be looking it up.
No, put that back up.
Yeah, put it up. I need to see it again. Hold on.
I quote his ways to win the. Oh gosh, yeah.
I think I remember it. Cliff, write it down on the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one he said, because the first, anytime someone says, what is your favorite Uncle Doug quote, and I say he couldn't hit a bull in the ass with a banjo. That's my favorite one. And so I use that one very, very often.
All right,
but I'm not sure which one he's talking about.
I'm surprised John doesn't.
Stop the man with the skin of the pig, run the football, pressure the quarterback.
No, it was run the ball, stop the run, and then the third one is Cliff. Help me out here. I forgot.
Said it right there.
This
stop the man with the skin of the pig, run the football, pressure the QB.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well done.
Game plan for Sunday.
Yeah.
Stop it. Yeah. You know what? It seems so simple, but it works.
Yeah, indeed. Even in today's
We
football.
forgot that after the Matt Nagy era. We forgot that. But
I thought you had to do an end around on 3rd and 1. I've been brainwashed. I thought
Oh my God.
I was unaware that that's how you. I thought you had to just run. I didn't know you were allowed to run any other route than a curl route. So I'm still trying to get past that a little bit. I promise this is not going to be a year of us bashing Matt Nagy because that's past us now. But it's the show before the new season, so we're getting it out now. Because it's in the past after they kick the ball off on Sunday. Alyssa, I know you're holding your prediction close to the vest, but Aldo, what do you think? What do you think about this game on Sunday?
Well, I think that the Bears have a great opportunity to win this game. My only concern is who is going to win the line of scrimmage. And so if this offense can contain this outstanding pass rush of the 49ers, then I think the Bears will win. I think that the Bears will win by 4 or 5, anywhere between 4 and 7 points. I really do believe that they have the element of surprise on their side. I think that Luke Getsy is going to throw things at them that the 49ers have never seen. So I'm not going to predict the victory because I am concerned about the battle at the line of scrimmage. But I think we've got a really, really good shot of winning.
I will predict a victory. I'm gonna. I think I picked whenever the schedule came out. I went out on a limb and say, here's the game that they're gonna win that they're not supposed to win, because I like the fact that they're catching this in week 1. They're gonna be at Soldier Field. Trey Lance is gonna be. You know what? He's not going to be used to this. I don't care how many reps you give him. I don't care what you did in the preseason. Whenever Matt Eberflus ramps up the pressure, it's going to be different. And I know that he got some spot starts last year, but now he's the guy, and he has to be the guy. And there's a world of pressure on this kid, especially with the veteran as the backup now. I think that there are going to be plenty of opportunities for the Bears to take control of this game. I think that. Now, could they blow those opportunities? Absolutely. But I think that San Francisco will provide a few opportunities for the Bears not to just stay in this game, but to win this game. And I'm not usually the beacon of positivity on this show, as you may remember.
This is very weird.
This is really out of character for me to say that the Bears are going to overperform. And maybe it's just because, I haven't watched them in a while as far as playing in regular season, but I really think that they're going to have an opportunity to win this game. I think that they could win this game 23-17. I think that they're going to score enough points and maybe get a few turnovers. Maybe listen, the Bears go in and they force a quick turnover in the first quarter, and then maybe they get some points off that turnover. Maybe Trey Lance starts doubting himself, or maybe he gets out of his comfort zone a little bit. I think there's going to be opportunities here. Now, they could say the same thing for Justin Fields, but I think that there's, like you said earlier, there's so much more pressure on Trey Lance to perform well with a Super Bowl caliber roster than it is for Justin Fields, where no one has any expectations. So anything he does is overachieving. And so I just like the opportunity for the Bears to go in there and set a tone, create some turnovers, and steal one from San Francisco. And then maybe this is just my wishful thinking, a win over San Francisco can shut everybody up and say, this is not the worst team in the league. This is not going to be the team drafting number 1 overall. You know why? They just beat a team that some people are picking to go to the Super Bowl. So I think that this is a great opportunity to start this Eberflus era off on the right step, and kind of take the flack off of Ryan Poles a little bit for not going out and spending stupid money on mid-level players. So we'll see. I think that they have a good opportunity, and like I said, I'm not normally a homer. So this is me legitimately thinking this, not just playing into it. I really think that.
Although we need to save this for if the Bears beat the 49ers, lead off the show with that. There's our open.
Well done. What's your prediction, Alyssa?
She's saying.
Okay, well, I'm not going to reveal it yet, but no, I do think that this game, it's winnable. I mean, I will say that, and I think it's obviously the timing of it. It's perfect. Trey Lance is his first time starting the year as a starter. And I just think, we look at what they did last year. I mean, that offensive line did a decent job, right? I think the defense broke down, and Ryan Poles addressed the secondary. That was the big issue. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I think this is a good matchup. Like Aldo said, I think it's going to come down to the line of scrimmage. Like, that's the concern, right? We're going to be looking at the offensive line and how they contend against Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead. So, I mean, it's going to be much more competitive and close than people are giving them credit for. And I mean, I'm not going to make my prediction yet, but I would not be surprised if the Bears pulled out this game. I'll say that.
I was laughing. Bears 104, 49ers -2.
Yes. Okay, well, that's my prediction. Damn, how do you get it?
J2K, I like it. We'll get that. That sounds like a Swirsky super fan skit on SNL. Bears 104.
What
Niners.
about an MVP for this game, John?
Ooh. Well, here's the thing. Well, no, I shouldn't say that either. I was going to say, if the Bears win, it's going to be hard not to say that, Justin Fields was the MVP. But I think that you could certainly give it to somebody in the secondary, like a Jaquan Brisker, who could potentially either picks up, gets an interception and then forces a fumble, or comes up in the box and makes a big play. So I think it could be somebody on the defensive side of the ball who really changes the game, because if it's tied, if it's tied 17-17 late in the game, and then, Brisker takes one to the house, then it's hard to not give the MVP to that. So I think that it could be somebody in the defensive secondary making a big play to end the game. So I'm, if the Bears win, I'm just gonna say, since we're just throwing out random, predictions, I'm gonna say Jaquan Brisker could be the MVP of this game just for making a big play late. I like what I see out of the kid, and talked to some people who watched a lot of his college tape, and they love it. So I think that he could already have an impact on this game.
Right.
Wouldn't that be a welcome to the NFL moment? My goodness, that would be amazing.
Well, it's better than
a good one.
It's better than throwing a interception in the back of the end zone to aim. He I lost his name already. Adrian Amos. Remember against the Packers, Trubisky throws that last pick, and Amos didn't pick off. He didn't have any interceptions for the Bears, and he gets one in week 1 to end the game. That was a little bit of a heartache. So hopefully we could reverse that. But then next week after this game, we get to talk about the Packers in prime time.
Oh, lovely.
Why do they keep doing that?
There goes the positivity. This is going to be the last.
This is it. This is it, because I hate when they're on prime time. I hate it. I got to stay up late because I'm on the East Coast. Most of the time they get their butts kicked, so I have to stay up till almost midnight to watch them get their asses kicked. And I hate it. I hate it. Wait until they're good.
I'll be up till 1 or 2 a.m. writing stuff. I hate prime time games. But if they've managed to do the impossible, meet the Packers, I'll be doing it with a smile on my face. So
good point.
Hey,
good point.
Never know.
You know what? We're staying positive. Stay positive. Stay the course.
It's not week 2 yet. We can be positive. We're still positive. I like this. This is new, and I really hope that we can hold on to it.
This might be the last time it happens, but at least we're going to try it out this week. Aldo, we got anything else to go over?
Just one more from Eric. He asked, now that the roster is final, and it's close to final, there might be some transactions over the next couple of weeks. How do we grade the job that Ryan Poles has done building this 2022 roster?
Man, I was about to take a really bad cop out, because I was going to give him an incomplete. Because
Me too.
And Alyssa, you're a teacher, so you know what this is all about. But because the reason I was going to say that is because you don't know a lot about a lot of these players, and so if we're going to, when we give mid-season grades, we'll have a much better grasp on that. I just think that Ryan Poles took the approach is, I'm going to go get a lot of low-risk, high-reward guys who might be hungry for another contract, who are possibly going to have career years or have some of their most productive years in Chicago, because this might be their last chance. And so they're going to give it everything they have, and if they play well, then we will reward them with another contract. I know that's an awful answer, so I don't want to say incomplete, but I will say I'll give him a solid B- right now, just because you don't see any outside of maybe Roquan and Robert Quinn, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody else, that you don't see a lot of top 10 guys, although I love David Montgomery and I consider him one by, most standards. People don't say he is. So I'll say B-, but honestly, I can see that slipping way high or way low. So that's, don't hold it to me right now.
Yeah,
I think I'd give him. Oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, as a former teacher, I'd give him a B right now. Just again, this is we'll call this the first quarter, right? It's just like the season. This is the 1st quarter, right? There's still a long way to go for this grade to be factored in, but I think I really loved what he did in the NFL draft. I think that's the big one. I think that really did a lot for me giving him that B. You know, when he drafted Brisker, I know everyone wanted a wide receiver. I was among it, but then when you really sit back and you think about it, the way he's building this team and addressing, he knew secondary was a huge need. So what did he do? He used his first 2 picks to address cornerback and safety, 2 of the big positions, and those starting jobs that were up for grabs. So, and then you have Bayless Jones. You know, at first it was like, oh, did he reach on him? But again, maybe he found a hidden talent that other people were overlooking, right? And we'll see again with whether these guys pan out. But Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker already, from like when they got there, already were making plays, and they're going to be defensive cornerstones in this defense. And I mean, even like going out and drafting offensive linemen, Braxton Jones, if he works out and is their left tackle of the future, my goodness, landing him in the 5th round, that is going to be huge. And even the undrafted free agents, right? Jack Sanborn, I'm really excited to see how he factors into this team moving forward. Like, my goodness, like getting him, I can't believe he wasn't drafted still, but you know, I really was impressed with what Poles did in the draft. And even in free agency, like you said, Johnny, he was going out making those low risk, potentially high reward signings. So next year, he'll be able to do a little bit more work in free agency. But I think for a first NFL draft, I think this one has the potential. I mean, even getting Trenton Gill, who looks like a seasoned pro already. My goodness, when he went out there, I was like, are you sure you haven't been playing in the NFL? I mean, this draft class has the potential to really have a big impact on this team moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I agree with Laz here, who says the D-line, he has concerns with the D-line. And it's just too bad that the Larry Ogunjobi signing did not work, that his injury prevented him from passing the physical. And, you know, it was good that the doctors caught it. You don't want to invest in a player that there will be concerns that the ankle injury he had could have some long-term problems. Or it could be a wash for the season. We'll see how that goes. But that was big. And then, of course, the Ryan Bates signing with or lack of signing with the Bills, that really would have helped the depth of this offensive line. So I agree with everything that everyone has said. You know, the big grade comes next year. He's going to have all of these resources, and he needs to take a monumental leap forward at addressing, you know, needs at the cornerback depth, wide receiver depth, and making sure that Justin Fields has the adequate or better than adequate offensive line protection. So with all those resources that he has, and if he doesn't get an A after next year's roster building, then there'll be some disgruntled Bears fans here at the bar room.
Yep, I agree. Well, I think we covered a lot in this, you know, hour and 45-minute premiere, which is much longer than we normally go. But it's just been so long that we had so much to talk about. Yeah. Before we close things out, let's talk about some of the other things going on at the bar room. Of course, after every Bears game, Bear Football, the post-game show with Aldo Gandia, myself, and Tyler Ellis. And is Tyler back on the show?
Tyler, Danny Shimon, and you. I'll be behind the scenes producing and teeing things up for you guys. So it's Danny Shimon is joining the team and basically replacing me. I want to go behind the scenes and be on top of making sure we get press conferences on time and find some interesting stuff on social media that we could use to help analyze those Bears wins.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. But yeah, that's after every Bears game. You'll catch us after the game on Sunday. It'll be noon for you Central timers, 1 for me, and so I always get the late games. But I can't imagine living on the West Coast and there's a football game on at 10 a.m. I'd love that every. That'd be awesome.
Can you imagine? That'd be fun getting drunk at 10 a.m. and having a reason to.
Well, I'm also thinking like Monday Night Football starts at 5:30. I'd be done at 8:30, and then like my night's not even over yet. I'm like, well, this is neat. But although I have to wait, I have to try to keep myself up because I'm old and I'm sitting there at 11:30. I'm like, come on, please be over. Like, I got nothing. And then we got to do a post-game show, so I'm on until 2 a.m. But either way, make sure you tune in to Bear Football, the post-game show, after every Bears game here on the Barroom Network. Aldo, what else is going on? There's like 9 million shows on the Barroom Network now. What do we got going on?
There's tons of them, and I'll highlight this one tomorrow. This is a show near and dear to you, John, because you developed the concept, and that's the Bear Debate. And tomorrow it'll be the Bear Down girl, Caitlin Lerner, facing off against Alyssa, your good buddy.
Brendan.
How do you pronounce Brendan's last name? Because I got to rehearse that.
Shagru.
Shagru. Okay.
Shagru.
Shagru.
Maybe I'll just call him Brendan S. But that's going to be fun tomorrow at 8.
He's used to it.
Sorry, Brendan. That's at 8:30 tomorrow. I got some great questions for them, so that should be a great debate. And of course, some of the other shows we got here on the network that are attracting a lot of attention: Bear Necessities with Jordan T. Silvera, and the Bears Country podcast has joined us on Monday nights, and Greg Gabriel is still hitting out of the park the day after every game. So we'll see him next Monday. We got a lot of content, fresh content almost every day. And so really appreciate all of you who are already Barroom diehards, and let other people know about what we're doing. Let's create a bigger crowd.
Yes.
What you got going on, Alyssa?
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to add the best way to stay informed about everything happening here, all these amazing shows happening at the Barroom, is to follow us on social media at Barroom Network. And you can find us all across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget to bookmark bearswire.com. I'm over there doing a whole bunch of stuff, getting ready for week 1. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. I mean, I never stop, but game week is a different monster. So, I'm preparing, getting back in the swing of things. I'm ready for Sunday. I'm ready for Sunday so we can just stop hearing about how bad the Bears are. I really hope that John's prediction comes true. And if it does, you can read all about it on bearswire.com.
Listen, Alyssa completely undersold what she does over there. She is an absolute machine. I've never seen someone just churn out so much content and then also have everything else going on as far as what her job is. So make sure you're following her on Twitter. Make sure you bookmark everything that she's contributing to, because it's absolutely amazing that you can get that much content out for one person. It doesn't even make sense. I worked in media for over a decade. It doesn't make sense how much stuff she actually churns out. I actually thought she was a robot at one point. So make sure that you check out all of her content. But that will do it for this premiere episode of Buffone 55, the beginning of season 6. How are you people still listening to this? It's incredible. Season 6 of Buffone 55. We will see you next week. They're kicking the ball on Sunday, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.